I want you to close your eyes for a second. We're going to take a trip. It's June 1st, 2025. You are standing in the middle of the Irkutsk region in Siberia.
Which, just to orient everyone, is geographically closer to Mongolia than it is to Moscow.
Right, it's the definition of remote. The air is crisp, it's early summer, and it is quiet. You are standing on the tarmac of the Belaya Air Base. For decades, this place has been considered, the safest real estate in the entire Russian military empire.
It's the deep rear.
Exactly. The front lines of the war in Ukraine are over 4,000 kilometers away to the west. That's roughly the distance from New York City to Los Angeles.
It's a distance that historically meant you were untouchable. You could park your most expensive assets there, leave them out in the open, and, well, sleep soundly.
Until 4 a.m. on that morning of June 1st, because seemingly out of nowhere, the sky lights up, explosions rip through the silence, and suddenly strategic nuclear bombers are burning on the runway.
And that moment, the moment the Belaya Air Base started burning, was the moment the rules of modern warfare changed.
Today, we are doing a deep dive into Operation Spiderweb, or Pavutina, as the Ukrainians called it.
Yeah.
And I have to be honest, when I first looked at the stack of research for this, the CSIS reports, the BBC Verify analysis, the Reuters dispatches, I thought there was a typo.
A typo in the location data?
Yeah, because of the distance, the sheer impossibility of it. We're talking about a coordinated strike on 5 different air bases across 5 different time zones, all happening at the same time.
And the craziest part?
Ukraine didn't use a single long-range missile to do it.
No missiles. No stealth bombers.
So we have a mystery here. How do you hit a target on the other side of a continent without an intercontinental weapon? That's the mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack the logistics, the really surprising technology, and the geopolitical fallout of what might be the most successful asymmetric attack in history.
It really is a Trojan horse story for the 21st century, but before we get to the how, we really need to understand the what. Because the targets here weren't just, random depots.
All right, let's look at the map. We mentioned Belaya in Siberia, but that was just one knot in the web.
Exactly. This operation was designed to paralyze the Russian aerospace forces essentially across the entire country. Up north, inside the Arctic Circle in the Murmansk region, you had Lenya Air Base hit.
Okay.
Then closer to Moscow, you had Ivanovo-Severny and Diaghilevo. And then way out in the Far East, the Ukrainka Air Base in the Amur region.
And these bases house the big dogs, right? We aren't talking about fighter jets that zip around the front lines.
No, these are the strategic assets, the heavy hitters. The primary targets were the 295 MS Bear and the 222 M3 Backfire.
I've seen pictures of the Bear. It's that massive plane with the propellers, right? Looks like something from a World War II movie.
It basically is. It's a legacy platform, loud as hell, fueled by kerosene and nostalgia. But it's crucial because it carries the long-range cruise missiles Russia uses to strike Ukrainian infrastructure.
And the thing is, Russia stopped producing the 295 years ago.
Right, so if you break it, you can't just go to the factory and order a replacement.
It's gone forever.
Precisely. Every airframe destroyed is a permanent subtraction from their total fleet. And then at Ivanovo, they targeted the A-50 mainstay.
That's the one with the giant Frisbee radar on top.
That's the one. It's an AWACS, an airborne warning and control system. It's the eyes of the Air Force. They coordinate everything. Russia only has a handful of these in working order.
So losing one is like losing your vision in a boxing match.
It's a huge blow.
Okay, so the targets are high value. The damage was, well, I guess the polite way to put it is contested.
Contested is putting it mildly. The Russian Ministry of Defense immediately put out a statement saying all attacks were repelled.
Which feels like their default copy-paste response.
It is. But in 2025, you can't hide a burning bomber. Satellite imagery from Planet Labs and analysis from BBC Verify came out within 24 hours.
And the scorch marks were undeniable.
Absolutely. The SBU Ukraine Security Service claimed they used 117 drones to hit 41 aircraft.
That sounds ambitious.
It's a bold claim. Western intelligence puts the confirmed destroyed or damaged number closer to 13 aircraft. But even if it's just 10, getting 10 strategic bombers taken off the board in one morning.
That is a catastrophic loss.
Catastrophic. We're talking potentially $7 billion in damages, depending on how you value the A-50s.
Okay, money is one thing, but I'm still stuck on the geography. 4,000 kilometers I've driven across the U.S. That takes days.
Yeah.
How do you get a swarm of 117 drones to fly that far without being shot down?
You don't.
Meaning, They didn't fly from Ukraine.
No, no way. If you launch a drone from Ukraine and try to fly to Siberia, it has to cross thousands of kilometers of air defense radar. It would be spotted instantly.
Okay.
The genius of Operation Spiderweb is that the drones didn't fly to Russia. They were already there.
Walk me through this. Are you saying they have a secret base inside Russia?
In a manner of speaking, this was it was an intelligence operation first and a military strike second. According to the SBU reports, they spent 18 months smuggling the drones into Russia.
But you can't just mail a military drone via FedEx.
You can if you take it apart.
Huh.
They broke the drones down into innocuous components: motors, batteries, wiring, frames.
Just parts.
Just parts. They smuggled them across the border through gray supply chains and then reportedly reassembled them in a warehouse deep inside Russia. One source specifically points to a facility in Chelyabinsk.
Chelyabinsk is in the Urals. That's already deep territory. So they have a secret factory running right under the nose of the FSB.
That seems to be the case, but assembling them is only half the problem. You still have to get them to the air bases. And this is where the operation turns into something out of a heist movie.
How do you move them?
You hide them in plain sight. They used wooden modular cabins. You know those prefab huts or construction site offices you see on flatbed trucks?
They're totally boring. You wouldn't look twice at one on the highway.
Exactly. They loaded these cabins onto standard flatbed trucks. But inside the cabins, it wasn't an office. It was a rack of FPV drones.
No way.
And here is the kicker. The roofs of these cabins were hydraulic. They were designed to open remotely.
Wait, so the truck is the launch pad?
The truck is the launcher.
That is wild. So they drive these trucks right up to the bases.
Close enough. Reports suggest they parked them about 7 to 10 kilometers away from the airfield perimeters.
But who's driving? Do you have Ukrainian special forces guys disguised as truckers driving around Siberia?
No, that's too risky. If they get pulled over, the accent gives them away. They used unwitting Russian civilians, mules.
Unwitting. So the driver doesn't know he's carrying a weapon.
No idea. Imagine you're a freelance trucker. You get a job on an app to haul a construction cabin to a coordinate near Irkutsk. You're told to park on the side of the road and wait for a pickup call.
So you're just sitting there, maybe eating a sandwich, waiting for your next instruction.
Right. You're bored. Maybe you're scrolling on your phone. And suddenly, with no warning, the roof of the cabin behind you pops open and a swarm of mechanical hornets buzzes out over your head.
I'd probably have a heart attack.
Well, there's actually a report from a local Russian police blotter about a driver near the Ukrainka base who started throwing rocks at the drones as they flew out.
He threw rocks at the drones.
He realized too late that he was an accomplice. He panicked. But didn't matter. The drones were already airborne.
That brings up a point, though.
Yeah.
You mentioned Ukrainka. That was the base in the Amur region. The outline I read mentioned something went wrong there.
Yes, and this highlights the risk. At the Ukrainka site, the truck reportedly exploded before the launch.
Oh, wow.
It seems there was a self-destruct mechanism. If the system detected tampering, or if the launch failed, the cargo was rigged to blow. It destroys the evidence. A one-way ticket.
But for the other 4 bases, it worked perfectly.
Perfectly.
Okay, so the drones are in the air. They're close to the target, only 7 kilometers out. But Russia is famous for electronic warfare. They jam everything around these bases. Your GPS on your phone wouldn't work within 20 miles of a strategic bomber base.
Right.
How did the drones find the targets?
This is where we get into the tech stack, and it's surprisingly accessible. They didn't use military-grade guiding systems. They used open-source software called autopilot.
Autopilot. Isn't that what hobbyists use to fly camera drones in the park?
It is. It's a free, open-source autopilot software. And that's why it's brilliant. You can't sanction it. You can't stop people from downloading code from the internet. The Ukrainians modified it heavily, of course.
But software doesn't solve the jamming problem. If the GPS is scrambled, the drone is blind.
Unless you teach the drone to see without satellites, they used a technique called dead reckoning, combined with visual odometry.
Break that down for me. Dead reckoning sounds like something from a pirate ship.
It basically is, but digitized.
Huh.
If the drone knows its starting point and it knows its speed and compass heading, the computer can calculate. I have flown northeast at 50 kilometers per hour for 3 minutes, therefore I must be here.
So it's doing the math in real time.
Exactly. It doesn't need to ask a satellite, where am I? It knows where it is relative to where it started. And because the flight time was so short, remember, only 7 kilometers, the drift or the margin of error was minimal.
That is incredibly clever engineering. But there's one more piece of this puzzle that really blew my mind. The targeting. Because hitting a plane is one thing. Destroying a giant metal bird with a small drone is another.
Right. These FPV drones carry a small payload, maybe a few kilograms of explosives. If you hit the fuselage of a 295, you might just poke a hole in the aluminum. You won't destroy it.
You had to hit the vital organs.
Exactly. The wing roots where the fuel lines connect, or the radar dome on the A-50, you need surgical precision.
But how does the AI know what a wing root looks like? It's not like it can Google it.
Well, the Ukrainians did something very old school. They went to a museum.
A museum.
The Poltava Museum of Long-Range and Strategic Aviation right there in Ukraine. They have these exact Soviet aircraft, the 295, the 222 sitting on display, decommissioned from the Cold War era.
So Ukrainian engineers just walked up to these museum pieces with scanners.
Basically, yeah. They LiDAR scanned every inch of them. They took thousands of photos from every possible angle, simulating an approach from above, from the side, from the front. They built a massive 3D dataset of the enemy using planes that were sitting in their own backyard.
And then they fed that data into the AI.
Yes. They trained the neural networks to recognize the specific weak points. Target this box on the wing. Target this dome. So when the drone camera saw the real Russian bomber in Siberia, it matched it against the museum data and knew exactly where to dive.
It is terrifyingly smart. It's using history to destroy the present.
It's the ultimate form of asymmetric warfare, using open source code, commercial trucks, and museum exhibits to take out a piece of a nuclear triad.
So we've covered the how. Let's zoom out to the why. Because the timing of this strike, June 1st, 2025, was not a coincidence, was it?
Not even close. You have to look at the calendar. June 2nd, the very next day, was the scheduled start of the peace talks in Istanbul.
The big summit.
The big summit. For months, the narrative had been that the lines were frozen, that Ukraine was on the back foot. Putin was going into those talks expecting to dictate terms.
And then, 24 hours before the diplomats shake hands.
Ukraine burns down 5 of his air bases. It completely flipped the script. It wasn't just about military damage, it was about leverage. Ukraine walked into Istanbul not as a victim, but as a combatant capable of striking the enemy anywhere, anytime.
It shattered the narrative of the safe rear.
That was the phrase the Russian mill bloggers used. The safe rear is dead. If a base in Siberia isn't safe, then a depot in Moscow definitely isn't. It forces Russia to spend billions on air defense for everything, every bridge, every factory, every parking lot.
But surely this was a massive gamble. I mean, you're hitting nuclear-capable bombers. Doesn't that risk, well, nuclear war?
It absolutely touches the third rail of Russian nuclear doctrine. The doctrine states that an attack on critical military infrastructure that threatens the nuclear deterrent is grounds for a nuclear response.
So Ukraine was effectively playing chicken with Putin.
They called his bluff. They calculated that Putin wouldn't end the world over a few burnt airplanes, even if they were strategic assets. And they were right. The response wasn't a nuclear launch.
It was chaos.
It was internal purging. Generals got fired. Security officials were arrested. It caused paralysis, not escalation. It exposed the rot inside the system, that you could smuggle 117 drones across the country and nobody noticed until things started exploding.
It really changes how we have to think about security, doesn't it?
Wow.
We spend all this time talking about hypersonic missiles and laser shields.
We do. We obsess over the high-tech shield. But Operation Spiderweb showed that the vector of attack isn't the sky, it's the supply chain.
It's the highway.
Right. If I'm a NATO commander sitting in Ramstein Air Base in Germany right now, I'm not just looking at my radar screen. I'm looking at the delivery trucks parking at the logistics center down the road. I'm looking at the shipping containers in the port.
Because any one of them could be a Trojan horse.
Exactly. The barrier between the front line and the home front is gone. Civilian infrastructure trucking, shipping, warehousing is now part of the kill chain.
That is a sobering thought to leave on. We always expect the next big weapon to look like science fiction, but it turns out it might just look like a flatbed truck driven by a guy named Dmitry who thinks he's hauling lumber.
Innovation is usually born of desperation. Ukraine didn't have the missiles, so they built a better way. And now every military in the world has to figure out how to defend against a cardboard box.
Well, on that note, if you want to see the damage for yourself, I highly recommend looking up the satellite photos from Planet Labs. We'll link them in the show notes. The before and after of the Belaya tarmac is something you really have to see to believe.
The scorch marks tell the story better than we ever could.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Stay curious out there.
And stay critical.